All right, y'all. It is time to talk about the books that I completed in the month of November and set up some December reading pages. So stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Tracy and this is a girl with plans. So yes, I have been all into my brand new reading journal, doing setups and all that fun stuff. If you have not checked it out, definitely check it out. I do have a playlist going, but I will link it down in the description just for an easier find. As of the time of this filming, I've had 2 videos go out with my new reading journal setup, but I should have a 3rd video coming out soon because I made a little decision about a supplemental journal. Maybe I'll chat about that as we go through this. But first, I'm going to do a quick recap. I've already filled it in. I just feel like it's a little bit easier for me to do it beforehand because I kind of like lose my train of thought when I stop to write stats and stuff like that. So I am filming this video on the 28th. So I still have 2 days left in the month. However, I have just started reading Zodiac Academy Restless Stars, and that's a 1,000-page book. There is no way I'm going to finish that by the end of the month, especially because I'm not 100% into it. I'm a little lost because it's been so long since I've read the previous book and I didn't love that one, so I didn't want to reread it. So it's taken me a little bit longer to get through the story. I think I've been reading it for 2 days now and I'm like less than 10% in, which it's a 1,000-page book. So, I mean, I'm like 100 and some pages in, but still it's a struggle for me, guys. It is a struggle. So I feel like I have enough to go ahead and wrap up this month. I'm going to save the pages and the hours for later, just in case I get the urge to finish something up. I did start a reread of sorts of The Fourth Wing on audio because the 3rd book in that series is coming out in January. And the libraries have so many copies of those books available on Libby. And I read the 1st book, I read the 2nd book, but it's a very different experience listening to it. So I'm actually enjoying listening as a reread. This is like one of the first rereads I've done, if not the only reread I've done since I was probably like, oh my gosh, like in college. I'm just not someone who rereads books. But listening to it, that might be my new thing. When I need to reread a book because the next one's coming out, I might do the audio. All right. So let's get to the stats. So that way this video isn't super long. So I read 4 books on my Kindle. They all were from Kindle Unlimited. I listened to 1 audiobook and that was from the library. So it was from the Libby app. That was not, I'm not counting Fourth Wing. I've only listened to like an hour and something of that one. So I completed a total of 5 books and then I DNF'd another one. I will say with the DNF, that one, I don't count any of the pages read or anything like that. So when I talk about pages read and hours listened to, I'm only talking about the completed books. So I am cheating myself just a little bit by doing that, but it gets super complicated to try to write in all the other things. Maybe I'll write in parentheses the number of pages I've read for the DNFs. That could be something I think about for 2025. Okay, I did not have any 5 stars. I came close. I did have 2 that were 4 to 4.75 stars. I had 3, well, the remaining books that I read were 3 to 3.75 stars, and my average rating was 3.65, which was down from the 3.8 that I had last month. All right, so I'm going to cover this because I do have a spoiler on there. And I don't want to like spoil anybody. So I did my genres. I'm still confused about how to break apart these books because pretty much all of them were fantasy, but they were so different. So the books that I read, let's chat about those really quick. I'll do a full like voiceover with my final thoughts of those books as I'm decorating. But I read Feathers So Vicious, which is the 1st book in the Court of Ravens duology. I also read the 2nd book. I read Only the Lonely. I read that one because the buzzword challenge for the month of November was only in the title. And then I listened to Nightbane. And then I read Fae Prince, which is part of the Vicious Lost Boys series. So I think Nightbane, is that the Light Lark? Is that what it's called, the series? I don't know. I'm not finishing that series, so it doesn't matter. But those are the 5 books that I finished. Okay. So they're very different. 2 of them, I said dark fantasy romance. They are not romantasy. They are fantasy with romance. There is enough of a plot in there and enough of a goal for the characters that isn't just romance. So that's why I say dark fantasy romance. Then there was like one paranormal book that's fantasy, but it was very lighthearted and it was more of an urban fantasy. Maybe I need to write that in there, because it took place in the real world. And that was Only the Lonely. One YA fantasy, because that would have been Nightbane. And then I have no idea what to consider the Vicious Lost Boys series. So I just said one dark reverse harem fantasy retelling. Yeah, this is going to be really hard when I track my genres in 2025. So some of these stats I actually gathered from Storygraph. They capture your stats for the month, and I never write them down. I highly recommend Storygraph. I'm actually started, I downloaded Fable too. I use Goodreads, but I only use Goodreads because it's connected to my Kindle app. So it kind of captures when I start or finish a book, which that is helpful. But other than that, I do not use Goodreads. I highly recommend Storygraph if you're looking for something that might be a little bit better than Goodreads. And Fable seems to be very, very awesome. There's a lot of fun book clubs on there, which is something I'm going to be doing next year as far as getting into some of those book clubs, which will hopefully guide some of my reading. But one of the stats they do is like average time to complete books is 8 days. There's a lot of other stats, but because I read a lot of the same type of books, they're not worth writing down. So I started one new series, which was the Only the Lonely book. I don't know the name of that series. That's really bad of me. I continued 2 books that were part of a series, and then I finished one series, and then I did separate duology. And I started and finished the same one, so I finished one. My favorite book was Shadow So Cruel. That was the second book in that Court of Ravens duology, and my least favorite was Nightbane. We'll talk. This is like favorite characters, favorite moment, and surprising moment. I like Malar. He's like the really evil guy in the Court of Ravens duology, but I really had a soft spot for him. I thought he was really misunderstood. He was very mean, and there was no reason for that. But yeah, and the longest was Shadow So Cruel, and the shortest was Fae Princes. Okay, let's talk about what I did over here this time. So I'm still trying to figure out how to use my spreads to kind of do a little bit more. And this time, instead of writing a summary on my favorite book, because that really throws things off when I had a book here, like last month, I did my favorite book. I did that here instead of on my reviews pages. It just threw everything off. So here, what I did is I just wrapped up my month in reading. I wrote that I was very surprised by the Court of Ravens duology. I was also really surprised by Only the Lonely. Those were 2 books that I went into and did not think that I was going to like, and I really enjoyed it. Only the Lonely didn't get that high of a rating, but I still enjoyed it. It just wasn't like, oh, it's a great book. It's not going to live rent-free in my mind. But I'm probably going to continue the series. We'll get into that during the recap. And then I was kind of, the other ones I wasn't surprised by, but the other ones I'm just kind of glad I'm done with them type thing. But I kind of like this. We'll see if that continues into 2025 or not. We'll see. We'll play around with it. I think the way I have counted for my book reviews and stuff, I might have enough to do like 4 pages for a recap for the month. And then I can go into my reviews. So yeah, we'll see. Because then if I do that, I don't know, because when I'm doing my reviews here, I'll show you my reviews again. I don't think I have any spoilers in here. You can see I'm getting kind of lazy with the reviews. I'm not like, early on, I was adding stickers and everything. And now because I'm in my new journal and I'm setting it up, I'm just writing with pen. I might go back at some point and add some stickers if there's spaces. Some of these there isn't space because I had a lot to write, but others there's definitely space. So most of these I am finding that a half page is sufficient. There's some like this, I could probably do a third of a page. So I think I'm just going to have to like figure that out. I don't think I need it to be the same all the way through in 2025. I think I can kind of do that. However much space is needed is what I'll use. If I need a full page, then I'll use a full page. So we'll see there. All right, so that is that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip to the next one. I have not drawn the calendar. I'm usually on it, y'all. Now I'm going to have to draw the calendar. I won't even speed that part up. I'll just skip over that part in the video editing. But I was looking through my books and I didn't want to do a all-out Christmas spread or anything like that for this. But then when I was flipping through Winter Elements from Live Love Posh, I came across this one, and this is Christmassy, but then there was like a bookshelf, and I'm like, oh, and look, there's books. So I'm like, I kind of feel like I need to use it. So yeah, I'm going to use it. It's not red and green, it's blue. And I feel like as far as like Christmas, you either have the red or green, or you have like the pastel vibe, which is very in right now. So this is a little bit different. So I feel like this will be still a breath of fresh air, even though I haven't even started doing Christmas stuff yet. So I'm going to keep the same kind of concept going when it comes to this. I still need to figure out my stats a little bit better, but if I'm being honest, I'm going to be writing down my stats when I'm probably finishing up my 2025 setup. So I'm probably not going to give that its full attention either. But yeah, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 pages left. Actually, I have more than that. So I have a bunch of pages, but I did save a section here for my wrap-ups so I can have stats. I'm going to have pages left because I started doing series reviews here, and then I stopped. And the reason why I stopped is because I was coming in and pretty much just talking about the books, and I don't want to do that anymore. I'm doing that here. So I stopped doing all of that. And the spoiler is probably my next reading journal setup video will be a supplemental journal that I'm adding that's going to house my series reviews. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Not sure when that's going to go up. But yeah, I think it's going to be series / duologies because there's the duologies I have read thus far this year are my favorite, or some of my favorite, because the Kendrick Curse Saga is probably my favorite series of the year thus far. But the 2 duologies I've read are like there. So before I set it up, I am making really good progress in my challenges. What I'll do is I will do a complete like flip through of this book probably sometime in January after everything's complete. Because some of these I haven't updated. So like I still haven't updated my stats. They're obviously on the monthly page, so it's fine. And I haven't colored in all of these. I am up to I have completed 69 books. So I'm way ahead. Last year, I think I did like 30 some. So I'm way ahead of the game. Here I need to put a photo of my November read for only. December is holiday words. I have a book in mind, so we will put that on here. Here, like I said, I think I mentioned that I don't think any of those are going to get colored in. This, I have 2 books that I plan on reading for December, so X is probably not going to happen. And I think that's it for the most part when it comes to series. Oh, favorite book. My favorite book. Why am I blanking? I know what it is, but I want to make sure I have the right one. Shadows So Cruel. I was thinking Shadows So Vicious, but yeah. Okay. All right, I need a good December one because right now I think Daughter of No Worlds is still ahead of Shadow So Cruel. Although I think actually Shadow So Cruel might be ahead of Daughter of No Worlds. I feel like this one had the bigger impact on me than that one. That's shocking because this felt close to a 5-star. This one would have been if there was a couple of scenes that threw that one down. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start putting stickers on the page. I'm going to try to find my stencil. So while I'll search for my stencil, which I eventually could not find my matching pair, I'm going to go ahead and do my reading recap. Like I said, I finished 5 books this month. 2 of them were part of a duology. It was the Court of Ravens duology by Liv Zander. The first book is Feathers So Vicious. The second one was Shadows So Cruel. I'll talk about them both together. I will say that this is a very, very dark series. It's a dark romance. And when I say very, very, very dark, that means it's very dark. And it means please read the trigger warnings. And I will say there really is no escaping some of the darkness because there's like a couple of really dark scenes, but then they are referred to quite frequently throughout the book. So yeah, definitely check the trigger warnings before reading it. But this book, I was shocked. I did not think I was going to enjoy it, and I really enjoyed it. The first book I gave 4 stars. The second one I gave 4.5. It is basically you have these shifters that shift into ravens, and then you have the humans, and apparently, obviously, as in with most books, they're going to be at odds. The story kind of starts when you have the king's daughter is kidnapped by the ravens, and that's where it goes. There are 2 ravens that kind of, I don't want to say they're vying for her affection per se, because it is very, very complicated. But basically you have your the king's daughter, and then these 2 ravens. One of them is the prince of, I guess, that the ravens. So those are your 3 main characters, and that is who the book follows. These are very, very complex characters, which is something that I really, really enjoyed. The plot isn't super complex, but it is multifaceted. It doesn't strictly focus on the romance. That is just a part of the plot. There is some of like the political intrigue and some of like, trying to take over different places and things like that. So it kept my interest the entire time. Like the second book I read in 4 days. So if that says anything. Yeah, so I highly recommend it if you can get past some of the trigger warnings. All right. Yes. So then the next book I read was because it had the word only in the title. Originally, I was going to read Only a Monster, and I started reading that book, and that was the one book I ended up DNFing. I read about 10%, and I just didn't like, I just couldn't get into it. It read really, really young. I think it is more of a YA. So I ended up switching, and I switched to Only the Lonely. Never heard of it. It's by Amanda Lee. Apparently this is one of those like 7, 8, who knows how long the series is going to go. I don't know if it's finished or not. But it was 270 pages, so it's not too long. It's more, I guess, an urban fantasy / paranormal type thing. So you're following like reapers, which was kind of interesting. And, there's magic and stuff involved, and then these other like mythical creatures and things of that nature. So it's interesting. It was definitely a little different, and it was kind of simple given the complex nature that I'm making it sound like. It wasn't very complicated. It was more of I don't really know if you could say a mystery, but it had those kind of vibes of those like easy to read mysteries. Even though it really wasn't a mystery, it's more of your just regular urban fantasy. It kind of had those vibes. I enjoyed it. I only gave it 3.5 stars, but I will continue the series when I need a break from some of those other long fantasies that I read, or those dark romances that I read every once in a while. The next book I want to chat about a little bit is Nightbane. The first book was Lightlark. I don't know if that's what the series is called or not. I think this is where I'm going to end the series. I'm not going to move on to the third one. I listened to this one on audio. I don't know if I would have had a different experience if I was reading it, because it just didn't hold my interest. And I remember the first book really didn't hold my interest, even though I was reading it. But this just did not hold my interest. I really just could not wait for it to end. It read very young. The characters are older, but it read very, very young. And I don't know. I just felt like there wasn't much to it, but that just might have been just my impression of the writing, or maybe I just didn't connect with the characters. I'm not sure. Or maybe the timing's off. Maybe it just wasn't a good time for me to read that book. Let me know if you think I should give it another try. So yeah, we'll see. And then the final book that I want to chat about was the last and final book of The Vicious Lost Boys. This was Fae Princess. This series, I don't even know what to say about it. All the books are less than 300 pages. They're really, really short books. This one was 226. They're kind of like novella-like books. I just really didn't care for the series as a whole, but there was enough plot in places to keep me hanging on. This book was by far the best. It had the most plot. A lot of times the smut gets in the way. It only happened a few times in this one. This book should have been a large part of the series. Like, the plot that was in this book should have been a large part of the series. And it's unfortunate that it wasn't, because I think the series would have been better. And this book also left a lot of questions. There were characters that were introduced in the last few books, like Rock, who is the crocodile character, because this is a retelling of Peter Pan. And he was kind of brought in. He had more of a role in the third book, but he had very little role in the fourth book. And the way he was introduced, it seemed like he was going to have more of a role. So it was very, very confusing. I gave it 3.25 stars, and I think overall the series is going to get a 3 stars for me. And I'm kind of torn even giving it lower, but I think it was okay. But I would only recommend it if I knew the person I was recommending it to and knew what types of books they liked. Because I think for most people, this might not be the greatest book. But if you really like reverse harems or fantasy retellings, then it might be for you. But this is just not my cup of tea. I like more... If there's a reverse harem, I want more plot and I want more of a strong female main character. All right, guys. So, yeah, let's get back to the video where we can just wrap everything up. All right, guys, here we go. Everything is now done. I had to write my DNF that I did. I never wrote the title of it. I realized that when I was here. So everything is done. My TBR for this month is Year of Yes and Zodiac Academy. That will fulfill the Y and the Z on my A to Z challenge, and then I will just have X. Children of the Gods, because I've already started the book, that series, oh my gosh, I don't know the name of the actual series. Daughter of No Worlds was the first book. I gotta think what the name of that series is. And then The Rent of the Holly Library, that's gonna fulfill my buzzword reading challenge, which is holiday words. So Holly. So those are the 4 that are right now on the top of my TBR list. I'm hesitant to start any new series. I do have a lot of series that I'm kind of gonna want to pick up in the month of January, including Throne of Glass. But here's where I'm going to leave open for the book club pick, which I'm thinking is going to be a reread of Iron Flame. So I'll put that there. This is where I'm going to keep my 5-star stats. I'm going to break them all down in this one box. I'm going to do my average here, and then we'll write any DNFs here. And then those are my typical stats, like page numbers, total read, everything like that. My calendar is going to go here when I finish it. And then this is where I'm going to use my dot markers to write the books I read, and the dots will correspond there. And then here we go. I'm leaving this page open. I really did like doing the monthly kind of reading summary about how I feel overall about the month and the books that I read. Again, it's not like it's completely, the way I wrote it this time was completely different than in my actual book summaries. And then these are for those various stats that I'm going to keep, like genres, source of the book, favorite book, favorite or surprising moment, favorite moment, longest book, shortest book, things like that. So hopefully this is enough because there is a lot of stats. But yeah, there we go. So December is set up almost because I have to draw the lines there. And then I'm going to be like ready to move into my January one. I will say what I'm going to do is I'm probably not going to do a January setup for my reading journal because I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. the way that goes. But what I'll do is I'll do a final flip through of the final setup of my 2025 reading journal. And then you'll see how I set up January, and then I'll add anything additional that I need to add at that time. And probably middle of December or somewhere along that, I will do a final flip through of my 2024 reading journal, and I might even go through some of the books I read. I will likely give you a very small summary of the books that I read in December at that time. So that's kind of what to look forward to. There should be two more probably reading journal setup videos. The one is going to be a supplemental journal setup video, and then the other one will be a final flip through of the reading journal. I pretty much actually have finished it, guys. I'm just waiting on those challenges that are being hosted by others so that way I can add them to my journal, and then I'll be ready to do a final flip through. So yeah, definitely hit that subscribe button if you have yet to subscribe, because I will have some reading journal plan with me's and flip throughs coming your way. And typically, just an FYI, the way I'll do it is I'll probably have one reading journal video a month starting probably in February. So there'll be a couple in January, but probably just one in February. All right, guys. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. If you enjoyed it, please press that like button. And like I said, if you haven't subscribed, I hope you would consider subscribing. That is all I have for now. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, or night. Until next time, bye.